We are a group of well-mannered, good-looking young white people who have something to say.
The resurgence of white supremacy and the so-called alt-right in the U.S. has attracted plenty of media attention in the last year, its leaders not shying away from the spotlight.
I'm Eli Mosley, here representing Identity Europa and the American alt-right.
Take, for example, Elliot Klein, aka Eli Mosley. He claims to be an Iraq war vet whose views on the world were forged by that experience.
Turns out, he never deployed. Not to Iraq, not anywhere.
An investigation by the New York Times revealed the claim to be false. But above the article, the paper included a justification for the coverage in the first place.
And they don't understand. No, you shut us down, we come right back. You shut us down, we come right back. We're not going anywhere. Every time I get an account shut down, I'm making a new one the next day.
And posed the difficult question, by covering white supremacists, are we simply providing a platform for them to recruit followers and spread hate?
It's a movement where 30 people with cheap tiki torches can seem like an army in the echo chamber of social media.
Reporter Emma Cott led that investigation. Emma, that really leads us to this great conundrum. How do you profile a guy without giving him more profile?
It is a good question. Well, I think check the facts. I mean, clearly it's a complicated issue how to cover white supremacists in this day and age, but, you know, the New York Times and I believe that, you know, sunlight is still the best disinfectant, and not covering these people is not going to make them go away. So my mantra throughout was one that, you know, I think is just a regular journalistic mantra, which is that you always have to check the facts. You know, journalists should approach everything with every subject with a healthy dose of skepticism. And of course, that's especially important here. So I don't know, one small example I can think of is Eli Mosley, or Elliot Klein, the man I was profiling or doing the piece about, told me that the group he was head of, Identity Europa, is an unarmed group. And then when we were with them during an event, we saw a semi-automatic rifle in the van. So, you know, by being there with them and spending time with them, we had some revealing moments.
You spent all that time. It led to this body of work of journalism, a fantastic piece, but it was topped by this almost disclaimer, this note from the New York Times. What prompted you to put that in?
Well, I'm not sure I would call it a disclaimer. I'd say it's, you know, more of an effort to be transparent with our readers and our viewers. And really, it's, you know, in this social media age, a lot of news outlets, including the New York Times, have realized that what our audience wants is transparency from us, how we do the journalism we do, why we do it. So that few sentences at the top of the article, which was from the editors of the New York Times, not from me personally, was an effort at that kind of transparency, to pull back the curtain a little bit. This is what we're thinking, to show our audience that we weren't just going into it blindly. We weren't, you know, just profiling white supremacists. We were doing it with intention. You know, the article I wrote that went along with the piece was part of what's a new project at the Times called the Times Insider. And that's a project of the Reader Center, which is a greater effort to do just that, which is connect with our readers, ask them if they have questions about our reporting, how we did it, why we did it, and to invite criticism as well. So it's really to sort of get this conversation going with our audience.
What kind of feedback did you get?
The feedback to the piece has been really overwhelming, mostly positive in the sense that people seem really happy that we spent the time to dig into this story. I would say, so there's a number of different levels of feedback we've been getting. So that was basically the feedback from the general public, although of course there's, you know, people that very you know, naysayers here and there, but that's with any story. And then I'd say from the alt-right, the feedback has been really interesting and somewhat surprising, which is, so Eli Mosley, Elliot Klein, the subject of the piece, came out with a statement that says, you know, this is based on, you know, there's a problem with the records, I'm going to correct this. And Richard Spencer, his sort of mentor and big brother figure in the movement, has said he's going to cut ties with him until, or if he cannot prove that my story is false, or unless he can prove my story is false. So that's a somewhat surprising gesture from Spencer, but I think it just shows that he himself is, you know, a political animal and wants to preserve himself and not be tarnished by this. Then I'd say the third level of response, which is interesting, is from the military. I've heard a lot of veterans and combat veterans chatter online saying, you know, this is totally against what the military stands for. If anything, the military is this egalitarian place in society where, you know, people from all classes and all races bond, you know, are fighting for the same thing under the same flag. And so this really has no place in the military.
Emma Cott, thanks very much for peeling back the onion for us.
Thanks for having me.